Good morning, Cindy's on.
Good morning. My name is Keith Humphrey and welcome to the meeting of the Post-Secondary Technical Education Authority. I'd like to ask if there's any changes or additions to the agenda. Okay. I take that as a no. And now I'd like to, well, the minutes of the previous TEA meeting are included in your meeting packet. Are there any changes to these minutes? And if not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So move.
Have a second?
Second. This is Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie. Are there any opposed? If not, then the motion's carried. Moving on to reports. Are there any introductions anyone wants to make? Take that as a no. Next is the chairman's report. I have a report I'd like to give. July 27th, I was invited to attend the Kansas Technical College President's Retreat in Emporia. So I did make that trip and it was good to meet and to get to know some of the tech college presidents, as well as touch base with some old friends that were in attendance. Also on August 7th, I visited Cowley College in Arkansas City and met with President Schoen and Vice President Gregg. In addition to touring the campus, President Schoen shared with me the plans for the new 32,000 square foot career technical education center that's currently being built. The CTE Center will help to train and certify advanced construction trade workers, welders, and in electrical and HVAC fields in criminal justice. This center will be a huge benefit for the Ark City community, as well as for South Central Kansas region that struggles filling these positions in these fields. It was a very impressive plan, and we're looking forward to seeing that completed. And also like to mention that there's a presidential inauguration reception for President Schoen at the Brown Center at the Arkansas City Cowley College campus on September 7th at 2 p.m. Okay, so that's my report. Any other reports? Yes. I have a couple of reports. Sure. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was pleased to visit a couple of our technical colleges in July. On July 11th, I visited Manhattan Area Tech College, and President Jim up there gave me an excellent overview of their program and their expansion plans. They are in the process of pursuing a master expansion plan that makes excellent use of their existing footprint while trying to increase their capacity quite a bit. I was impressed by his mention of the fact that their experience thus far with the engineers and architects at NBAF up there has led them to the creation of an innovative critical environment tech program, in which students receive education in monitoring water, air, security, and lighting systems, all of which are kind of, I think, known knowns, but this is about understanding the interrelatedness of all those systems and the importance of how they work together. So clearly an important type of career path that they're looking at up there. Jim did note that those operating grants, $1.5 million operating grants, are hugely important to schools like theirs, and he is eager to see those expanded if that's going to be possible. 2 days later, I went down to Emporia and visited with President Doherty down at the Flint Hills Tech College in Emporia. She took me on a tour of their welding instructional facility, and I just want to call out the young lady who was the instructor there. Is named Corinne, a very impressive person who just marched right up to us and was able to really show us the place in a very clear, knowledgeable way. So my hats off to her. She's a real asset to you down there. They have grown that particular welding facility. They've added a number of booths to it and are doing excellent work there. We then toured the main building and talked about their hope for expansion plans as well. It's always interesting to get into the nuances of expansion, because simply adding a wing over here impacts the way other programs and student flows work together. So you really have to get into the nitty gritty to understand the challenges and constraints, but they are on a path for some hope for construction over the next 2 to 5 years. So thanks to both of those individuals and those institutions, I was very impressed by what I saw. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any others?
Mr. Chair, October the 11th will be Dodge City Community College's what they call Tech Ed Career Exploration Day. Last year, they had almost 700 young people come to the school. But basically, it's at the where the 3I show is, where they take that whole exposition center and fill it up with those programs. Very impressive. So if you're out and about then, you might, you've probably been there, haven't you, young man? Yeah, my buddy Hector. But I appreciate that effort. I wanted you to know about that. It's always a pleasure when I get to meet with Ryan, and I did over in Garden regarding something that we'll share later on. Is that okay, Ryan, if we do it that way? And also had the opportunity at the same time to meet with both the president and Clayton there at Dodge City Community College. And then right after that, I went to the truck driving program there and was able to meet not only with the instructors, but all the students that are enrolled in that program currently. And that was really quite an experience just to have that input in why they're there and how excited they are about that program. And as some of you remember back 100 years ago, when we were the Southwest Kansas Area Tech School, believe this or not, we had the first truck driving program in Kansas with Fort Scott. Now that's a long time ago, but here we are needing him more than ever with Hill Marchese coming to Dodge City like they are. Can you imagine the truck traffic there that's going to be a part of that? Right now, they say they have enough dairies to accommodate them at this time. But guess what they're projecting? The possible need for 9 to 12 additional dairies in Western Kansas in that area. So that's from them, not me, that's them, okay? Needless to say, I have met with a couple of our representatives, senators, regarding highways in Southwest Kansas. We certainly need to improve on those. I was told that there will be additional, passing lanes established, but that's not going to correct the problem when you calculate the number of units that are going to be coming in and out of there at the cheese plant. And it's only just a stone's throw from where the 3I grounds are there. It's on the south part of town, just so you know. And then I think we'll and I want to thank Scott for something that he did too, right now, in front of everybody. Scott sent out that note to all of you with what has happened between that young man right there and South Liberal. That effort to do that is what this is all about. When you see that kind of cooperation between administrators like that young gentleman there and our friend at Seward County, that's what we got to do more of to make all these things really work. So I wanted to thank you, Scott, for getting that out. I think that was kind of opened some eyes real quick about cooperation among our institutions. That is major in my view. Enough from here, and we'll catch up with some of the other things with my friend in just a little bit, okay, Mr. Chair? Thank you all very much for what you do. That's the other thing I wanted to say. I appreciate you all a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Any others?
Yeah, I too was able to attend the retreat with the tech colleges on actually the 26th and 27th. Had a nice social time on the 26th to get reacquainted. But the subject was on the next day. And Jim, thank you for the invitation and allowing us, Keith and Scott, to be present and get a chance to, hear and get feedback from the tech college presidents of their vision and the plans as they move forward, and also to provide us feedback as TEA members regarding, how we can better help and better support our technical colleges. And thank you to Karen for hosting that, and your team did a great job. So it was a good experience. And certainly I appreciate the partnership we share with the technical colleges and having that opportunity to sit down together and to really get a better understanding of one another, of the role that you play as in your institutions, but also the responsibilities we have as the TEA. So again, thank you for allowing us that opportunity. Oh, I forgot to mention, highlight of the day was, of course, and he's not here, Mike Bean's presentation. So I hope you'll let him know that I recognized him. And actually, I brought Snicker bars, specifically for him, because he's the one that needs it the most. And he's not even here. So maybe a few will land on his desk somewhere. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Any others? Yes.
Yeah, I think I have it on. I'm good. I just wanted to give a quick update from KSDE. We had Perkins trainings in June and August. We had Brewman out and the team from KBOR came. Thank you. And we attended one of the Perkins coordinator trainings that KBOR put on. They invited us so that we could see more about what they were doing. We're going to review 7 clusters starting this fall. We've invited KBOR representatives for pathway to program alignment, and we've asked to have presentations on the aligned programs that most closely relate to the clusters that we're reviewing. I had the opportunity and thank Hutchinson Community College. I met with the president, Dr. File, and he gave me a tour of the automation program and explained to me and showed me the equipment and what they were doing and the courses. There has been some feedback from our secondary LEAs regarding an engineering cluster review, which we are doing, and perhaps looking more at automation. So Garmin International will be our business and industry chair on that particular review committee. So we're excited about that. Tomorrow, we start a statewide CTE PD across the state at each of the 7 service centers. And we'll be sharing information that include our work with KBOR. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reports? Okay, let's move along then to Vice President Workforce Development Report. I'd like to call on Vice President Scott Smathers to provide us with a report on workforce development activities. Vice President Smathers.
Thank you, Chair Humphrey. Well, first of all, welcome back to our first TA meeting of the academic year. It's good to see everybody again. There's been a lot going on this summer with the board retreat, and we're going to cover a lot of what went on at this meeting and future meetings. But a few things I wanted to also mention to you. We've spent a lot of time this summer working on our national grants with Perkins and adult education, making sure that we're meeting the federal requirements and also making sure that the people across the state and are trained and we're operating consistently. And as I say, within the federal guidelines. We had multiple meetings with businesses such as Stormont Vale, Mission Health Communities, Train HVAC, IDEA, and the Health Resources and Services Administration, which provides scholarships to a lot of the students going on that. So I also attended the technical college retreat and really appreciated being asked to participate. As always, it was very informative and that was helpful to us. Our staff has attended multiple high school equivalency graduations. We presented and served on a panel at the Department of Education Conference in Wisconsin and also at the National GED Conference in New York. We continued working on the state's broadband efforts, and we're working to implement the healthcare recommendations and also participated in the new board orientation, which involved board member Regent Alicia Johnson, who was the Fort Scott president, and also Nalima Paraskar. She is the CEO of Snap It Solutions LLC. So those were just some of the things we did. Lastly, I wanted to mention and recognize that if you were not already aware that Sue Grosdidier from our office was selected as the National 2023 GED Administrator of the Year by GED Testing Services. So it was a very big deal. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Vice President Smathers. Next, I'd like to recognize President Ryan Ruda of Garden City Community College to provide us with a community college report. President Ruda.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Great to be able to have the opportunity to speak to you on a few items and projects happening around the state with community colleges. You know, I think it goes without saying that community colleges truly are the front door to not only our communities, but to education itself. So wanted to share a few happenings from across the state. At Neosho Community College, the Mitchell Career Technology Center. This is a $5.4 million facility that was made possible through donations and grants. This facility launched with 4 CTE programs in welding, construction, industrial maintenance, and aerostructures. And then also houses regional offices for Kansas Works and the Office for Kansas Department of Commerce. Additionally, there have been 3 new CTE programs added this fall in electrical, heating, and HVAC. And then also bringing on a new program in plumbing in the fall of 24. So this facility still has room for expansion with a little over 18,000 square feet that will allow for additional programs to meet industry and local needs. At Colby Community College, a ribbon cutting was done here recently on the Lon Fromm Agricultural Center in August of 23. The event was attended by over 200 individuals, and this project formally broke ground in October of 22, a little over a $3 million project that was made possible through public and private funds. The project itself will have a tremendous benefit on the service area and the state of Kansas for decades to come, as ag is the predominant form of business and industry in Western Kansas. They've not had proper facilities to be able to educate and engage individuals. And this facility, along with the college's vision, is being able to help bolster ag-related programs. So this little over 12,000 square foot facility will house programs in agronomy, as well as ag business, ag economics, animal science, equine science. And then they also had added recently a feedlot certificate program to support local feed yards there as well. At Cloud County Community College, Cloud's 35,000 square foot Technology Education and Innovation Center is currently under construction. Steel's going up here over the next few weeks. And this center will have a tremendous impact on rural Kansas through academic programs in renewable energy, including wind energy and solar, unmanned aircraft systems and drones, nursing and allied health, and ag and industrial technology, which also includes CDL and welding. There's many industry partners with this project, which include Salina Regional Hospital, NCK Medical Center, NextEra, Eagle Railcar, Ranky Manufacturing, Caterpillar, and Landau. Last few updates, as Member Estes had alluded to, Seward County Community College is currently expanding their CDL program. The college is expanding from its current capacity of 55 students annually to a new capacity of 235. In addition to this, over the past few weeks, Seward County and Garden City Community College have signed a memorandum of understanding to be able to partner on bringing the CDL program from Seward County onto the campus of Garden City. And this partnership will allow for on-campus face-to-face instruction as well as driving instruction in Garden City to meet the needs and demands in that area as well. And then lastly, Garden City Community College. We've recently opened a 10,000 square foot new STEM Success Center. And within the STEM Success Center, we will house 3 new programs in robotics, computer science, as well as crop science. This space is opening this fall. We'll have some collaboration and tutoring space in it there as well. And then we've also recently broke ground on an expansion to our John Deere Ag Training Center. There will be a little over a 7,000 square foot addition, which will allow for expansion of that program with industry. So we're excited about a lot of the projects that are happening around the state. Appreciate your work and coordination on the technical education here, and happy to stand for any questions.
Would you mind bringing them up to date on the project there in Garden City and how it's coming along? The
Love to.
rodeo.
Love to. Anytime you get the microphone, I'd love to.
Yeah.
An additional project, Member Estes is alluding to, that we're currently fundraising and works on there is for a indoor rodeo arena. We have a lot of work that we're doing there within our community. This will be an indoor facility that allows for not only being able to house rodeos, but also helps with a lot of stock shows, horse shows. So this is really a community-led effort. The land is owned by the college that this will be located on there. So we're about a quarter of the way to meeting our goal there currently on our fundraising. And then this will be able to really bring a tremendous community resource available and online there for us in Garden City. Anything else you want to add?
Well, sort of, if you don't mind, the 4 acres that they're going to build that on, WKMA owned that 4 acres, Scott, for a lot of years. And we would not let it go. Hector knows this, I know. We would not let it go because we were afraid of what they might put in there that would take, because we were able to move the rodeo, that program right north of there this goes back a long time. But the point of the matter is that's what all happened. And so we turned that ground over to them. And I think that that's going to be something. What's ironic about it for us is that's exactly what we had planned to build on that 4 acres. Was that very same thing at that long time ago now. Long time, everything's a long time ago. But
Probably
that
for
was
about
our
that price then too.
long time. But now, if you wait long enough, things will turn out pretty dead gum good, right? That's the way I see it anyway. And I'm particularly proud of that young man that's standing behind that microphone because he has done wonders out there. It's a very welcoming school to go to and tour. Highly recommend it in every way I could. Thanks. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, President Ruda. Thank you, Eddie. Next, I'd like to recognize President Jim Jeanette of the Manhattan Area Technical College to provide us with a technical college report. President Jeanette.
Morning. Things are busy at all the 2-year colleges, right? Okay, I'm just making sure. It's fun when everybody comes back, but it also gets a little hectic. Some cool things going on with our institutions since our last meeting. Salina Tech, Greg's here if you have questions. They're partnering with Kansas State University, Salina Airport Authority, and One Vision Aviation to establish an aviation innovation and maintenance center. This collaboration will help in creating mechanics of excellence in aviation repair and maintenance. It's adjacent to the Salina Tech and K-State Salina campuses. It's developing a pilot talent pipeline in 4 critical areas of aviation maintenance, including electronics, sheet metal, paint, and powder generation. Funding has come from an ALOFT grant, Salina Airport Authority, and a lot of corporate sponsorships. And they're looking to be ready to start training early in 2024. They've also received donations of $150,000 toward a matching grant from the Button family for $400,000 for the Industrial Maintenance and Automation Center. This planned facility is going out for bid in the next week with groundbreaking in September. It will be an approximately 15,000 square foot facility to house the Industrial Maintenance and Automation Program. It is supported by the Kansas Development Commerce Community and Technical Grants through the ARPA grants to the tech colleges, along with a one-to-one match from various donors. This is going to help a lot of the manufacturing companies in the area meeting workforce needs by training more and more people on automation, which is the hot thing for all of us. Flint Hills Tech, and President Daughtery's here. They had a culinary student and faculty representing them at Skills USA in Atlanta in June. They had college teams compete in the community-wide corporate challenge in July and early August in Emporia. The college also hosted the Hispanics of Today and Tomorrow Fishing Community Engagement Family Fair. Let's Go Fishing Community Engagement Family Fair, which next time I want to get invited to that so I can go find some time to go fishing. And then the base grant that we received, they're using that to undergo renovations at both the main and south campuses. This is helping increase capacity so they can reduce wait lists and get more student enrollment in welding and in industrial engineering technology. Northwest Tech, they've started construction using an EDA grant to expand their diesel technology facility with another 5,000 square feet of space for projects and students. It's slated to be complete by mid-October. On August 30th, yesterday, the Precision Ag program hosted a field day in cooperation with the Kansas Soil and Health Alliance, where the growers and ag partners from across the state were on the college campus with the Water Technology Farm for demonstrations and training of how to use their precision agriculture program. Washburn Tech, Tim is here. They've instituted the Washburn Tech Thrive Scholarship, which I'm very jealous of. Implementation of this program in August helps residents of Shawnee County to qualify per qualified student for up to $375 per semester during the 2023-24 academic year to reduce their financial challenges and help them focus more on learning opportunities while reducing their financial need. They've also been busy with apprenticeship initiatives. They've started with agreements to focus on advanced science and technology, machine tool technology, and early childhood education apprenticeships, and they will have more details next month on that. They've been working with area industry on an assessment list and wait list related to HVAC and welding to help ramp up more capacity in those programs, working with their area employers for support. And one of the cooler things Washburn Tech does is Heroes Make America program. They've worked with 5 cohorts of 20 transitioning military personnel to earn their CPT certification through Fort Riley. And that's a fantastic example of collaboration with the military, with employers, and with Washburn Tech. Sherry's been a little busy at Wichita Tech. They've opened a new internship option with Foley Equipment for heavy machinery technology and an apprenticeship in accounting with Koch Industries. They've also been selected for the 5th consecutive year to be a Metallica Scholar School. The Rock Group provides funding for that, and it helps them expand access on resources, financial resources, and access into college courses for a lot of students who would otherwise be unable to take advantage of those things. They're hosting the National Annual Conference for the National Coalition of Advanced Technology Centers. If I had just read off the letters, you wouldn't have known what that meant. I had to ask her, what does that stand for? And that relates to kind of a higher level of even NC3. They've completed their Future Ready facility on their South Campus, which is a partnership with the Wichita School District and Wesley Hospital, so they can provide more in healthcare training. And a report done by the Wichita State Economic Development Unit came to the conclusion that the collaborative economic impact of Wichita State and Wichita Tech for the state of Kansas comes in at $1.3 billion annually. The components of that study include employee payroll and benefits, student spending. One of the unique components of that study was the impact of recruiting students and parents into the region and employers with local tourism. And then capital investments make up a key component of that study. Eric is back home. They're still working on a lot of therapy for his son. He sounds a lot happier now that everybody's under one roof. And at North Central Tech in Beloit, they gave the 2023 Fall Staff Faculty Award for Excellence to AJ Baxa, who's Director of Maintenance Operations at the Beloit campus. Their welding team took silver in National Skills USA competition in Atlanta, Georgia in July. The Hayes campus, they have a telecommunications project in its second year, partnership with Next Tech and the college, and they're already out of space. And then they're also working to put together a cloud-based job board accessible to area employers, students, and alumni. Little old Manhattan Tech, within days, we will open our Caterpillar welding lab at the Wamego Center. The Advanced Technology Center we're building on our campus is on schedule to be done by April of 2024, and we'll have at least 3 programs in the facility by next fall. Excuse me. We ran a pilot project last year with 2 of our rural school districts, looking at how can we help high school students get through intermediate and college algebra, which is a very common barrier for them going on to post-secondary ed. We did not charge those students tuition or fees. The schools agreed to adopt our approach, our curriculum, and our required recitation labs if a student's not earning at least a B in the class. All 18 students passed their courses. So we're looking at expanding that in our system. Eric may have to help me on this one. Chris told me we have a unique program going on in adult ed with math. So we're expanding our math as accessible to other colleges online. Okay. With Seward County so far. Okay. I guess Chris said it's called Cross Tech, but he came flying into my office the other day and says, hey, we're going to work with Seward to bring some students into our adult ed math program. I said, fine. This crazy guy just likes to teach all the time. The 5 years we've had adult ed in our program, we've increased the percentage rate of students passing by 40% and the percentage of those students going further into post-secondary education by 240%. We're in our 4th year of a collaboration with K-State College of Architecture, Planning and Design, the local Habitat Humanity, and our construction trades program. We work together to construct net zero homes in our area for Habitat for Humanity. Glad to have Member Sneeden on our campus. 2 last things, and these comments are really for all of the 2-year colleges. I think all the presidents in here, when we have Higher Learning Commission accreditation reviews, the most common hiccup any of us get is on that dreaded assessment of student learning. And it's not that we don't know how to do it, but it's doing it to satisfy the Higher Learning Commission. And that's been our only hiccup in our accreditation reviews. And it hasn't been serious, but we had to file an interim report because we changed our system to close the loop and provide more feedback to our teachers on assessment. In the letter back from HLC, they made this statement that I think is special for all of the 2-year colleges, not just us. The MATC interim report serves as a reminder that all institutions of higher education are not simple products of a cookie cutter approach. For HLC to say that, that's significant. Very significant. Finally, a Jobs for the Future report earlier this week made this projection because of AI. Between now and 2030, because of AI, 65% of the skills needed for jobs will change. 65%. I'm reading on that almost every day, and it's not that it's taking jobs away, it's reshaping jobs because of the skills required. So one of the challenges, as we've talked about before, for you to work with both the tech and community colleges is how do we do that forward thinking so we can prepare those skills for those people now? And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Turn that on. Are you able to share that report? I'd be really interested.
HLC or
in that. They,
Jobs for the
no,
Future?
the AI,
Yep, I'll send it
the
to you.
jobs.
I'll send it to Scott.
That's a good one.
That was kind of my question as well. And what is the changes that, I mean, did they get a little more specific?
One, and many of us are working on this, is how we get our students to realize the importance of the data and data analytics. The firms wanting to use AI more are looking for two things in particular. They're looking for data scientists, which is more of a liberal arts perspective, that general all around, how do you think what people may ask AI to do so you can put it in the right terms, but then also the data analytics part, but it's applied data analytics in much of it, which is where I think the two-year colleges can come in. So there's a big push among corporations, but especially universities and all of higher ed. How do we retweak some of what we teach? Basically, we're probably going to have to look at some data analytics in almost every program. And with the IT programs, in addition to cybersecurity, which we can't produce enough fast enough, where can we start preparing students to go into that data scientist part, perhaps as a transfer class or program, to keep up with that demand? Working with Enterprise KC recently, the number of cybersecurity jobs in the Kansas City area alone is over 7,000 that are open. So you add that with AI, if we don't figure out how to ramp up our skills with our people, the economy is going to fall farther behind. Thank you.
Thank you. My head's still kind of swimming from that, so we'll talk later.
Yeah, my eyes are glazed over right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a note of that too. That's a good idea. Let's move on to the consent agenda. We have 5 items from the Technical Program and Curriculum Committee on the consent agenda. I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Oh, Cindy, okay. Yeah, thanks, Cindy. So did we, so we had no opposed, is that correct? Okay, so that passes. Let's move on then to the discussion agenda. I'd like to recognize the Advocacy and Marketing Committee Chair Eddie Estes to present us with information on the proposed TEA member institution assignments. Committee Chair Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this information shouldn't be a surprise to anyone as we sent it out to make certain that this was going to be okay. Mr. Chair, what I'm recommending is that we support this as it has been presented to you.
Thank you, Committee Chair Estes. I would accept a motion to approve the proposed TEA member institution assignments as presented.
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then we accept it as is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Next, let's move to the Budget and Finance Committee. I'd like to recognize Chair Frederick to present us with an extraordinary cost project recommendation with the assistance of Associate Director Chambers. Committee Chair Frederick.
Thank you. Sherman, come on up. I know nothing. No, I just thought we would all benefit from a kind of a refresher on this topic, the extraordinary costs. It's a big project. And we got a start, I think, last time. And so we're going to continue in this. And so I asked Sherman if she would come, and I think it will all benefit from an update as we move forward. So thank you.
Happy to. Thank you all. Good morning. Before you is that recommendation for the extraordinary costs project. And in preparation to resume that this fall, KBOR staff met with representatives from the technical and community colleges on April 27th of this year. And we actually walked through not only the extraordinary costs component, but also all 4 elements of the cost model, taking away questions, concerns, and coming back then on May 22nd with an update from Vice President Smathers. We got back with everybody then, and we also then followed up August 8th with a note to the colleges to let them know that we were going to be working on this again and to provide them some additional feedback. So this round, this year, we anticipate looking at the healthcare discipline. And after looking at the KEDS database, it looks like we're going to be working with approximately 35 programs, which is a little smaller than some of the other years, but every college is involved and has healthcare programs. We plan to provide all institutions with the same tools that we have done previously, which is a spreadsheet of all of their programs offered, as well as a letter of guidance that gives examples of, here's examples of what not to include. Here are some examples of things that you want to make sure you include. We're recommending a 3-year time frame. We'd previously been looking at 5 years of data. We're recommending a 3-year time frame to be used for costs and credit hours. This would include the most recent year of data available. So this would be academic year and fiscal years 21, 22, and 23. A 3-year time frame is going to ensure that any anomalies during the pandemic won't adversely affect costs. It will also help ensure that the most recent data is included for all programs. And in light of the other 3 elements of the instructional cost model being updated annually, I can safely tell you that I think 3 years is probably the fastest that we can get extraordinary costs done. This is as Member Frederick mentioned, this is a very heavy lift, especially for the institutions to provide those 3 years of data to us. So I anticipate having the spreadsheets for the institutions ready and sent out in the next 2 weeks. We're targeting May 1st of 2024 to have all of the data from the institutions so we can aggregate that and then present that to you next fall. And I would stand for any questions.
Any questions from TA members? It is a lot of work on everyone's part. But I think it's so important that staff and the institutions continue to work together. And, you're there to help provide them with maybe questions and that, anyone might have.
Absolutely.
So I would hope that that kind of collaboration would continue as they work through, because there's always, something that an oversight, not intended, on the part of perhaps institutions, just not knowing or not being clear. So that your role as staff is to support that. And I appreciate what you do with that.
Absolutely.
It'll be a lot of work, but I think it's important work for us and also for the institutions. Are we needing to take any action or?
Yes, please.
Okay. And that action would be?
Just to approve that we go forward with the proposal as recommended.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move. We go through with the extraordinary cost proposal as presented, the action as presented. Thank you.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Chairman, I hope I didn't take over there. So, all right.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Sharman.
Yeah, thank you very much, Committee Chair Frederick and Associate Director Chambers. I'd like to move on to other matters. I'd like to open discussion to set a special virtual meeting in September to improve Excel and CTE funding distributions in compliance with the Excel and CTE legislative language proviso. The board office is required to provide Excel and CTE funding to participating colleges within 60 days of the academic school year starting. The proposed timeline for approval is included in the meeting materials. As you'll see, the board staff recommends setting the special meeting for September 19th, and this would allow us to forward our recommendations to the board for review in their September 20 through 21 meeting. So are there any discussions about this?
The only thing from my perspective, in my schedule, the 19th works, but we can do this no earlier than 11 o'clock. Not that I'm sleeping in, but I've got other obligations. So that's the only request that I would make on for that morning, be no sooner than 11.
11. Okay.
I'd be happy to participate, but it is a national collaboration of the CCSSOs and I'll be out of state. So the earlier, the better. I don't know how long the meeting will last.
6:30? I can do 6:30.
6:30 is out.
Oh,
So 11 o'clock seems reasonable. Is that going to be okay, you think? Okay, all right. So I would accept a motion to schedule the special meeting on September 19th at 11 a.m. To review the Excel and CTE funding distributions in compliance with the legislative proviso. And I get a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that's the meeting.
Just to clarify, we will be very surprised if this meeting goes more than half an hour. So it should not be a very long meeting, I don't believe, from your perspective as a group.
Great, thank you, Vice President Smathers. While we're on the subject of scheduling, I'd like to discuss open discussion regarding scheduling for our December virtual meeting. The board rescheduled this December meeting to December 13th and 14th. And so the reasoning behind our later start time of December 21st at 1 p.m. for our virtual meeting is no longer required, as we will not have a conflict with the board meeting. So for consistency purposes, rescheduling the meeting to 10 a.m., which is our normal time for meetings, makes more sense. So any discussions on this?
What date again?
December 21st.
Yes, it's still the same date that we had before. It would simply be moving the meeting from 1:30, where we had initially set it because of the conflict with the board, back to 10 o'clock, like all of your other TEA meetings. But we don't have to move it. It's just an option if you would like to, for consistency basis.
Any discussion?
And did you say that's a virtual meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would accept the motion to reschedule the December 21st, 2023 virtual meeting time to 10 a.m.
So moved.
Second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So 10 a.m. on the 21st. Moving on to TEA committees, I'd like to present the 2023-2024 committee assignments. Any discussions? If not, I'd like to thank the committee chairs for accepting the leadership with our committees, and to all of you for participating on these committees. So thank you. Moving on to travel policy, I'd like to recognize K-Board Director of Finance and Administration, Becky Pottebaum, to provide us with a K-Board travel policy. Director Pottebaum.
To present on this. As a state agency, the Board of Regents must follow the state accounting processes for payments to authority members, and the legislator sets in our appropriation language how these funds can be used for this purpose. As members of the Technical Education Authority, you're entitled to salary compensation for any event that you attend representing the TEA in any TEA meeting. You are entitled to subsistence for any overnight stay that you have while representing the TEA. And you're entitled to travel allowance for any attendance, regardless of whether that's overnight or not. By default, you do not have to get approval for TEA meeting, your scheduled campus visits for your assigned campuses, or delivering any presentations that are assigned to you by the Board of Regents or the chair. For all other travel, you do have to get the chairman's approval before you go. And that can be done via email, and we just have to have that documentation so we can pay for that. The process for this is that every one of your TE meetings, when you come, we give you a green document. Mine's white, it's in front of you all. That's pre-filled with the travel that we're aware of that you have done. And that's there for you to review. Let us make any changes if you have any questions or add anything. And then once you sign that, we will pay your days in attendance from that document, and we will pay for any travel or subsistence that you're entitled to from that document. And then our finance staff's name, the policies in your all's packet for today, and our finance staff's name's on there, and you can reach out to any of us if you have any questions. And I will stand for questions at this time.
I may have missed it, but when is our salary review up?
I don't know, you have to talk to the chairman about that one.
I've asked numerous times. I get the same answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice President, or Director Potabom. Next, I'd like to ask Vice President Smathers to provide us with a summary of the recent K-Board retreat. Vice President Smathers.
Thank you, Chair Humphrey. The K-Board held their retreat July 31st through August 3rd in Olathe, and it involved meetings at K-State Olathe, KCK Community College, JCC, so Johnson Community College, and KU Edwards campus. So it was a lot of campuses visited during the retreat. Areas of discussion included reviewing the strategic pillars of affordability, access, success, talent pipeline, and innovation, economic prosperity, looking at the national trends in higher education, economic development partnership with commerce, student success and belonging, university budgets, budget requests, non-budgetary legislative priorities, and board goals. In general, I would say it was really just a really good opportunity for people to get together and communicate and talk. The two-year colleges were represented by both Ryan Ruda and Jim Janant, as well as Andy Bound and Sherry Utash. Thank you. So it was a good time, and I think it was a good opportunity for everybody to talk and communicate as to what was going on. Some of the items that I just mentioned are going to be on our agenda again in September, and also moving forward in some of their other meetings. As for goals that the board, they did not set their goals yet. However, a few items that were discussed in length and that they are seriously looking at that I wanted to bring to your attention was the possibility of deployment of college and career navigators, the develop of a statewide transfer associate degree in nursing. They did education last year, and they're looking at expanding and including nursing this year, where 60 hours would actually transfer to the universities from the community colleges with that setup. They're looking at enhancing the partnership and alignment with the Kansas Department of Commerce. And obviously, where institutions will focus on the talent pipeline areas that align with the state's areas of growth. And then also identifying alternative credentials that are valued by business and industry and determine the best practices for delivering these credentials. So those were a few of the items that could also impact the TEA that I wanted to mention that were discussed. There are many others and others that I know will also impact the TEA, but those were the highlighted ones that I wanted to mention to you. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
What's the navigator thing?
The idea of the navigator is that it helps students get a better feel for going to college and working with the colleges and what programs they might be able to go into at the high school level and up through college, even inside the colleges a little bit for the first year or two. The challenges that the high schools and our secondary system faces is a lot of the counselors are very busy just making sure they get the kids to class at the high school and making sure they're talking to kids who are having struggles at home or other areas. And with this concept, these people would be a little more focused on trying to help the students with their track and how they can move forward and answering their questions, both them and possibly in meeting with parents to help them figure out how to move forward. That's a simplified way. I don't know if Jim, you or Ryan want to add to that at all.
To follow up with that, then in their discussions are talking about underwriting the expense for college navigators.
I believe it would be a
State
request.
level.
Yes, that's correct. At the state level, that's correct. There would be a request.
Would that be in, oh, that's interesting. Would be good.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Vice President Smathers. Now I'd like to call on Associate Director Chambers to provide us with an Excel and CTE online update. Associate Director Chambers.
Thank you. We just wanted to quickly update you on some items that have been placed online, specifically about Excel and CTE. So KBOR has received requests to post courses that are available to be taken online by high school students for Excel and CTE. We posted those last year and we invited institutions on April 12th of this year to provide an updated list for academic year 24 if they would like to. This is completely voluntary and it is updated so far with what we've received. We don't have any timeline on that requiring institutions to send us that within a certain time frame. So if they want to send it now, we can still update that. If they want to send it in December, we still update that. So we've got that out there. We also have the Excel and CTE fees that the authority and KBOR approved in January. It's also posted out in on the website for students, parents, counselors, whomever to be able to look at. And just one other quick plug that's not Excel and CTE, but our data research and planning team has already put together the academic year 22 KTIP. And that is also posted out on the website under the KTIP link. And once we have information about high demand and high wage occupations, we'll be providing you that quick update that we do about the highlights about KTIP as well. And I stand for any questions if there are any.
Are we able to tell what benefit this is to the students? You said high school students?
It would predominantly be utilized by high school students, their parents and what have you, as they are looking at opportunities to take college courses, and the fact that Excel and CTE is a specific subset of all of the courses that they could take. I think that we would probably see, we would need to talk to the institutions about if they're getting questions or if they're getting comments about, oh, you know, I happened to see this out on the KBOR website and decided to sign up, or I was comparing fees. I want to take diesel and I was comparing fees, and I think that kind of anecdotal information would probably off the cuff, that's where I'm thinking that we might hear about the usefulness of this.
If I might add, the other area that maybe it could be useful for some of the high school counselors or even theoretically a navigator if they come and play, but the high school counselors also can use this to be able to look and evaluate that information.
Well, I was just curious how we measure the effectiveness of this. I mean, I think it's good information to have out there. But how are students led to that information? You know, are they that, I'm gonna say sophisticated to do searches such as that would be required? You know, that'd be great. I'm just curious, you know, how we measure the effectiveness of that.
We do have the ability to track hits on the website. But again, that doesn't necessarily speak to, was this information useful to me personally? We'll have to think about ways that we might be able to measure that somehow.
I have a question or a comment or maybe a request, maybe all three. So we're going to go around the state starting in October and speaking to educators in regards to the individual plan of study. And we have an individual plan of study digital reference guide that we update each year. So traditionally I've sent that to April and Scott. And the resources that are within that are links that educators, parents, families, and students can access. If you have a lesson, Tara Labar and I worked together for about a year and brought together secondary and post-secondary and looked at what is the IPS so that both at the 2-year and 4-year, they're familiar with what the students do. Tara compiled a lesson on degree stats, and we have it within the IPS. We can put statewide lessons in that system to see how many students access them. So if there is a lesson or instructions that you would like to give to us rather soon, if we're going to put it in the guide, we're about ready to update it for October 1, we would be happy to do that. And I mentioned to April, we have a new education program consultant that has put together a resource for students, educators, and families. That is a link to every 2-year community and technical college, and it lists what programs are available for tiered technical courses, the link to that, and if there's specific instructions to be able to search and find those. So I know that those are updated frequently, but we have that posted and we'll share that within the digital reference guide also.
Right.
I would say there too, just in speaking from specifically Garden City, but you know, for the sector of community colleges, you know, in addition to what's being referenced here on the state link, many of the individual colleges also have links and are also working with their service areas to provide that information. So, you know, respective to your question on data and how do we know that they're tracking or going to these sites, you know, I think very simply it's looking at enrollments, looking at trends on enrollments there, but it's conversations that we're having really repeatedly there at the service area level with counselors, teachers, parents, just to continually let them know of how to access this information as well.
Right. Just, I would not expect for you to spend much time trying to figure out how we would track effectiveness. And the reason is that we can track the number of hits, but for effectiveness, we would have to have some measure of either at enrollment or the best way would be what Ryan would just say, just look at, and it would not be an exact science to see if enrollment's increased. But for us to try to figure out, that would be a pretty detailed, that'd be a rabbit hole that would be really hard to measure for the information. So no, I know I would not, it would be very hard. That can be done, but we would have to either involve the schools, you would involve a checkbox, and you would involve, and then you have to assume that the parents would pay attention, or it would be accurate. With the measurement, you'd probably always be underreported. If there were check boxes, did you find this online at such and such? It would be that, I don't know that the juice is worth the squeeze to have you spend much time chasing that down, would be my opinion.
That is a great analogy. I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'm using that as well. It's pretty good.
I'm glad you said that. I was about to try to weigh in to that effect. Unless I'm missing something, that if you were suggesting some brave, new, innovative approach to getting the word out, it would probably be fair to ask, well, tell us about how we're going to judge the effectiveness. This strikes me as kind of price of admission for any state that has a pretense of wanting to advance technical education. I'm sure it's a lot of work, but I think you'd sort of expect to find it out there. So gauging its effectiveness, to me, isn't really the question. It seems like the question comes later about other
How is it
ways to
used
push
and-
the message. Yeah.
It's a good idea. I mean, the thing is it shouldn't hurt. You do no harm. I mean, and it should be helpful. And if it can be integrated in the use of whether it's navigators or high school counselors or post-secondary, it should be helpful and it should not hurt.
I was going to add, as cool as we think we are, most people don't know, especially teenagers, what the Tech Ed Authority is or what the Board of Regents is. So we're not getting a lot of traffic from 17, 18-year-olds. We're not, even though we're that cool, we're not getting that kind of traction with them. But one thing we have used Perkins funds to do is advertise for career tech programs. We do it at specific times, and Tim's here, so he actually is in charge of that. It's called Build Something Now. It's on buses. We do YouTube, TikTok videos where we meet them where they're at to drive them to a page who will then get them here, but really to the college's pages is where they need to go. So we do reach out in that way. We have a limited budget to be able to do that, but that is one thing we do. But this information is there. Most likely it's going to be for the counselors who are talking to those students.
Well, I understand it's not a perfect science, but I can't help as a business owner, I ask the question all the time, what are we getting in return? This investment we're making. Legislators love to ask that question too. How are we measuring this? Are we measuring this? Is there any way to get closer to understanding and knowing the benefit of this? So I don't think it's an unfair question. But I do think that it is difficult, and the closer we can get to the front line, the institutions may be providing, some sort of, feedback on that in a scientific way. It was more than, well, we think, but that doesn't go far with me, and probably not very far with legislators either. Can you demonstrate at least in some way, the data that this is worth our investment?
And I believe Tim has provided you guys information, analytics that Cox is who we work with, what they can do. So if you ever watched a YouTube video, you get an ad. They track how long you watch that ad before you hit skip to go on to whatever you're really wanting to watch. And they can also tell us how many times this person has clicked to go through to our website or to the Build Something Now campaign. So we do have data on that, but if it translates to actual enrollments, I don't think that we at our level would ever know that.
But I would also just say with the two elements really that we're speaking to here, Excel and CTE fees, the lift on getting that ready is actually getting that ready for you all to review.
Yeah.
So us making that publicly available is not difficult or challenging on our part. And a lot of these things probably are perhaps the greatest usefulness is in it being publicly available so that regardless of how they get there, if they get there through the website from the school or from the individual plans or what have you, that we make it available. The lists of online courses for Excel and CTE come directly from the institutions. So that's really their lift as far as that goes. But this is not, I just don't want to present this as something that this was difficult for us to get done. We wanted to do the Excel and CTE fees a little differently and actually maybe pull it directly out of the system and have that available. And at least for right now, it is just more useful to take exactly what was approved by the authority and the board and actually just put the spreadsheet out on the website, but at least it's there.
I'm just going to add and then I'll shut up. But Ray, what I would love to see, the heavy lift I would love to see, we can track enrollment. We can track who they are, what they're doing, what they do after they finish. We can sort of fairly well, maybe not as well as we need to, track if they don't finish, why they don't finish. We're not great at that yet, but what we don't know and what if as a state, what we need to have happen if we're going to meet the employment and employer needs of the future, we've got to figure out all the people who aren't enrolled. And we've got to figure out, and we start it in secondary. You've got to get kids ready to enroll. You've got to get them interested. And we've got to figure out who's not enrolling and why they're not enrolling, in my opinion. And that's where, if we put any resources and time and funding to, that's what we're going to have to do if the state's going to make it with employees, in my opinion.
I give up.
I wasn't trying, I'm not trying to change. I'm just saying, ask them for the heavy lift. You can get it done. Find out why they're not doing it.
Who put her next to me? I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah and Ray and everybody who made comment. But this really does sound like the marketing discussions I have with my people about online marketing. It's very difficult to quantify the result of somebody hitting your page and looking at it, but you can measure how many people do hit it, how long they stay there. And then maybe you can draw a line from increased business all of a sudden. Why is that? Maybe they hit the website and they liked it. Okay. How do we get more people to look? If we think we're cool, but they don't know that, how do we let them know that? So no, that's a good point though. I mean, it's not so much about getting the interested people that are already on that website looking at it. They're already there. They're the ones that are going to make the decision to go to school. But the ones that don't know about that, the ones that haven't made the decision or think that's not for me, how do we get them to those websites or to that information to where they say, you know, it is possible for me too to get a degree or to get a certificate or to move on to the next level. Yeah, so that's good. So thank you very much, Associate Director Chambers. Appreciate it. Now let's go to Vice President Smathers. Would you please present us with the SB 123 credential list?
Thank you, Chair Humphrey. So during our May TEA meeting last year, we discussed the new SB 123 statute. And as a reminder, that was a statute that required us to create a credential list that if a student, a CTE student at a high school request, the high school is supposed to pay for that credential test. After a lot of discussion with KSDE, it was agreed that for this year, this list would be identical to the, I'll call it the Excel and CTE credential list, which we also have to create, which the TA approved last year, except with the addition of the certified medication aid certification. So we expect this list to expand and be based on feedback we receive from students and institutions in the academic year, but that list has been provided to you. We also hope to have an updated list ready for TEA review and approval in late spring of next year. So this year, because if you remember the statute passed, I believe the end of April, we had to have the list created and approved by July. So there wasn't time to bring it to the TEA as we were working to create the list. We had to do a survey of all the institutions and everything like that as well in the meantime. So this year we hope to bring it to the TEA, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or if Member Clark, who is also heavily involved in the discussions, has anything she would like to add, glad to have her.
Thank you, Scott. So the timeline was very short this year. So we have a Qualtrics survey set up on the KSDE website. So throughout the year, if people want to make recommendations, we welcome that so we can pull that information sooner. We've got to set up a reporting code because we want the student to be able to have that data reported back for completing that prior to May 1. So the credentials on this list all had reporting codes set up because we wanted to capture them. And that was the fiscal note also that was recommended by Deputy Commissioner Nguyen-Swander when this was brought up before the legislature, was based on the numbers of students taking this. That was the fiscal note for estimates on how many students had completed those in the last few years. So I don't know if we kind of knew of an idea before we had to set up our codes so that we can report the students as completing these, schools report back to them, that would help our record keeping. So early spring would be really positive.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. And next, Vice President Smathers, please present us with information on the KBOR and Workforce Development Group structure.
Sure. Well, we have a few new TEA members, and we also realize that some of you who have been around a while may or may not remember how our structure is set up. So I thought I'd just give you both the overall board structure, board office structure, as well as then more specifics regarding the Workforce Development Group, and that's in your packet. From a board point of view, we have, I would say, 6 areas that we really have. We have the Workforce Development Group, obviously, and then we have the Finance and Administration Group, which you've heard from Vice President Frisbee before, and we have the Academic Affairs Group, which is Vice President Archer, and they deal more with the programs, I'll say non-technical programs, and in a lot of various issues with the universities. They also deal with the performance agreements at the community colleges and the universities, technical colleges as well. They deal with the overall program transfers and course transfers and many other areas they have. They also have the private post-secondary requirements as well that they regulate. So a lot of that is involved in that group. We also have legal. Legal has had a change with John Yeary now taking over legal. Julene has gone part-time, and Ralph Gage has also joined him. We lost Matt Casey from our government relations, and he is no longer with the Board of Regents. He went to K-State, so he's doing government relations for K-State now. And so we're in the process of trying to find somebody there. And we have kept Matt Keith as our marketing person. So that kind of gives you an idea of how we're structured and what's going on from a board point of view. From a staff point of view, or a workforce development staff point of view, I'm very fortunate. We have a talented, and I would also argue very patient team as they are working with me. And we have not had any turnover since Lisa left and Crystal joined us at the beginning of last year. So being able to remain consistent and move forward. We have a pretty experienced team and we've not made any structural changes, but that gives you an idea of how we are organized. And if you have questions regarding who does what, be glad to answer them. But I just, as I said, wanted to give you kind of an overview of our structure, both organizationally and then specifically within the Workforce Development Group.
Any questions? Looks like we'll continue with Vice President Smathers. Can you please provide members with information regarding Workforce Development Group responsibilities?
Okay, well, as I say, we have a really good team of people in the Workforce Development Groups. And while the Workforce Development Group is responsible for supporting the TEA, and that is one of the major things we do, we also have many other tasks associated with our work that are really outside of, in some cases, the scope of the TEA. So this is really just giving you an idea of possibly why sometimes when you deal with me, I may seem a little out of control, is because we're trying to handle a few additional items. Two of the biggest items we have that you all do get reports on are adult ed and the Carl Perkins grants. Those are two very big tasks that we take on as an organization. And then, of course, as I said, you can see all the other items that we're also responsible for from a major task point of view. As I said, I'd be glad to talk to you about any of these if you have any details you would like to know. But with that, I will be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, sir. And next, Vice President Smathers, please provide us with information regarding the TEA responsibilities.
Annually, we provide you with this information. This is simply the responsibilities of the TEA as defined by the statute and also defined by the board. So you can see by the statute, the initial activities that the TEA are responsible for. Most of those involve recommendations to the board going forward, including the cost model, program review, and items like that. In addition, the board has asked that you all are given the TEA final say on state grants involving only the two-year colleges. So if only the two-year colleges compete for the state grant once they're approved, like the Innovative Tech Grant, once those grants are approved by the TEA, they are final. And we simply report back to the board what you did. The board has asked for program approval of the two-year colleges. They then move that to consent agenda. Included in the program review does include the Promise Act, the Excel and CTE fees, and other things associated with that. And the board has asked that you all get our reports on adult ed and Carl Perkins, and then that is simply provided to them as part of the chair's report when he provides a report to the board. So I wanted to let you all just kind of as a reminder what the TEA responsibilities are, and once again would be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
You know, the only comment I would make, and I appreciate the leadership for our TEA. Clearly, you know, from its beginning, TEA has evolved. And I think in a very positive and being more responsible way. In 2010, when I was president at what was then WATC, Wichita Technical College, was my first introduction regarding the TEA as a president. And I must say, my comment was, well, the problem with the authority is they have no authority. And I will say that over the years, we've seen that change. And I think it's because, and we all have shared in the growth of the TEA. And I think in the eyes and respect that we've gained with the Board of Regents. So, you know, I'm pleased that we continue to evolve, respond in I think a very professional way as a group. And I, feel like that, and I think it's evident with the fact that, the changes that and the board has given us and allowed us and respecting, our decisions and the process that many of these topics go through before it hits their desk. So anyway, I'm pleased to see the way that not only we have evolved, but we're continuing as a TEA to look inward and see are there areas that we need continue to adjust and respond to. And I think I'm glad that that's the approach we take and the attitude that we have as a group.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate that. And finally, Vice President Smathers, would you please present our proposed TEA goals for AY 2024?
Thank you, Chair Humphrey. And I think the way you phrased that is exactly right. These are proposed goals that have been created. They came from the discussions that the committees had. So they have been put forward. As you will see, they are very, very similar to last year's goals. There are two changes to these that I wanted to bring up from last year's goals. Because as many of the committees recognized, some of these were continuations of what we were already working on. Goal number 9 was changed, and it was basically before it was just improved communications with the school districts in Kansas, and they've specified a little more in goal number 9 that they want to do it with the high school, school counselors, school districts, students, parents, businesses, and legislature by expanding it. So they've identified specifically the entities when they talk communication. It's not just with the school districts, but with a broader range of people, which is I would say is more accurate and probably more logical in what's being proposed. The other one that changed was goal number 10. Previously, that was based on input from the community and technical colleges. Well, this came up at the retreat. And instead of basing it on the input of the two-year colleges, we're changing that now to where the board staff will take the lead and get input from the two-year colleges as well as the universities, because that's also been part of their interest from the retreat. So we're not going to wait on people. We're going to move forward with this and get feedback as we move forward from that. And I wanted to let you all know those two changes compared to last year's, and I would be happy to answer any questions. If you want any of these removed, added to, changed, that is, of course, your prerogative.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on this?
Can you explain number 10, please, a bit more in the use of determine? What are you, or do we have a view of what we mean by determine?
Yes, we at this stage of the game, there used to be a way in our system for the two-year colleges to be able to input when they were providing business training. And that was removed based off of a request of the colleges because everybody wasn't taking advantage of it, and it was just added work that they were having to go through in some cases. So the request came in, can we quit doing that? Starting last year, there was a lot of discussion about the additional training that's being done at the colleges and the inability of the Board of Regents and really the post-secondary as a whole being able to gather that information and be able to report out to legislators showing the value of what we're doing with the customized training. At the board retreat, it was also discussed about how there are other, I'll just say badges, other certifications that are also being provided that the colleges are possibly missing out on being able to report to. So we're going to be, as a board, trying to take a look at and see, okay, how can we set it up to where the colleges can report their customized training within our system? How possibly can they also look at reporting possibly some of these other credentials that, or other certifications that they're currently providing that we do not currently have them report, and then how as a system can we gather all that information and create a report that will allow us to report out on what we're doing as a system to show that to legislators and others.
Hey, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, well, thank you, Vice President Smathers, for providing this information. It's especially beneficial considering we have a number of new members on the authority this year. So we can take a vote on this. If everybody's comfortable with the goals as written, we can take a vote to accept these. If I can get a motion to accept.
So move.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's accept those as is then. So next meeting reminder, I'd like to remind everybody the next TEA meetings, both of which are held virtually. We have a special conference call meeting on Tuesday, September 19th at 11 a.m. and our regularly scheduled conference call meeting on Thursday, September 28th at 2020 or on September 28th, 2023. Yeah. Okay, so if there's no further business, I'd like to call the meeting. Yes, sir.
One thing, just want to make clear, on the page that have the dates and so forth, can we just make sure we've got them all the right time now? December.
We will have to change the December meeting based off of the new information. That's correct. Because the December meeting before was set for 1:30 and we'll need to make sure and move it back to 10.
Okay, so that's the only change to speak of, plus adding the 19th September.
Yes, sir.
Everything else stays the same.
Yes, sir. The conference call that we had at 1:30 is now going to go to 10. Everything else stays the same. That's
Got it.
correct.
Thank you.
We'll update that for the packet, the future packets and the website as well.
Okay, so if there's no further business, I'd like to call the meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.